All right, welcome to Cooking Fun with Joanna. I am your host, Joanna Hodorowska, with Nutrition in Motion. I am a holistic nutritionist, and I help you feel better and feel better about yourself. It's all about doing everything with ease. Eat better. That includes eating, moving, and sleeping better. Add anti-inflammatory stuff, stress less, and embrace the beauty of your body and your life. So that is what I do. And part of taking care of yourself and eating better is cooking your own food. So we're going to try to make it more fun to make crispy portabello mushrooms with marsala sauce. And I realized, I think in the description, I forgot to add the recipe calls for some cream. So we'll be adding that a little bit later. Then I couldn't find marsala wine, so I don't know if I should even try to use sangria, or actually I think I should use tawny port. I should use port instead. So
yeah, port would be good.
Disappearing for a second when I get that port. But what we're gonna be doing in this in a pan. So I have the 12-inch nonstick pan, which will do wonders for cooking all of these things together. But you'll need 3 bowls. One for an egg, one for either garbanzo bean flour or wheat flour or whatever your gluten-free flour is. Then one with the egg, and then a third one for your breadcrumbs. And I am not going to use breadcrumbs. I'm going to use these nut crumbs. So they're basically crumbs made out of nuts, but that keeps it more anti-inflammatory, so that you just use nuts instead. And if you have nut allergies, then obviously don't use those, because that could be a problem. But we're going to do a 1/4 cup of the flour, and I'm going to be using chickpea flour. Oh, 2 large eggs. I only got 1. 2 large eggs, some salt and pepper, 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs, or as I am using, the nut crumbs. 4 portabello mushrooms, but I'm going to use 6 of them because I ended up, my store only had the minis or the teeny tiny creminis. So I'm going to make these 4 to 6 of them. Then there's some olive oil. You can use shallots. My grocery store did not have shallots, so I'm going to use an onion. You could use a leek as well. And then some ground thyme, some chicken broth, some marsala wine, and some cream, and then parsley for a garnish. Got it? And we're going to actually also add some spinach into it, so that we add some more of that healthy goodness, the B vitamins, the iron, and magnesium to calm us down, and the greens to give us some energy. Plus it gives us some extra fiber. So we're going to use about 1/2 cup of that, and we're going to chop that up, or use scissors to cut it. So you're going to, first off, this is kind of the boring part, but it is what it is, right? I'm going to go get that second egg. Actually, I'm just going to start with 1 egg, and if I need another one, I'll go grab another one. But you're going to put in your 1/2 cup of, or 1/4 cup of and as you can see, I have 3 bowls here. Actually, you only see 2, but I have 3. I really do have 3. You're going to do a 1/4 cup of the flour, and I'm going to eyeball it just because I'm too lazy to pull out but that's probably about a 1/4 cup. So I'm going to dredge the portabello mushrooms in that first. Then you're going to take the egg and put it into the second one. And you're going to lightly beat the egg. And you're going to make sure that you take out any of those little remnants of shell, because that never makes anything good. And this is, we're going to actually add the salt and pepper to the eggs. And I need a lot of salt because I sweat a lot with my training. So I'm putting in a little bit more than usual. Do not be alarmed that I just put in a lot. It's what I need. But you'll probably be fine with just a 1/4 teaspoon. I probably did a little bit more than that. And you're just gonna lightly beat it. That's the easy part, right? And then you're gonna go ahead and put the turn the oven, not the oven on. This isn't the oven, is it? I have an oven in here, but you're going to turn on the stove to medium heat. And once that pan heats up a little bit, we're going to put a little bit of the olive oil, and I'm going to add a little bit of ghee into mine too, to give it a little bit extra flavor of butter without it burning. Maybe one of these days I'll actually make do a class on how to make your own ghee. It's very easy and it's very good. So as you can see, this is my 2 plates. The third one is going to be with the breadcrumbs. Oh, I guess I have to open this one. You're going to put a half a cup of the breadcrumbs or nut crumbs into your bowl. And don't worry if it's too much or not enough. So these are going to be the 3 things that you have. But what we're going to do first is coat each mushroom first in the flour, then dip it in the egg, then coat it in the breadcrumbs. And we're going to cook the mushrooms first, and then we're going to do the onions and the thyme and the marsala wine or tawny port and all the other stuff. So we're going to end up cooking the mushrooms first, and then we're going to make the sauce in the same pan, and then put the mushrooms back in. Does that make sense? So you're going to try to take this mushroom cap out, and I think you can see me. Can you see me? Yes. And you're going to just coat the mushroom cap with the flour, and then you're going to take that and put it into the egg. And the challenge is for it to always be coated. And then you're going to take that and put it into the breadcrumbs. If you want, and I think this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab another plate, because while I'm waiting for my pan to heat up a little bit, I'm going to need a plate to put this on. You can go ahead and put the olive oil in to your pan. You're going to put a good tablespoon in there, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to do a little bit less because I'm adding a little bit of the ghee into it. And this is my ghee that I make myself. So it's just using a half a teaspoon of that. And then I'm going to go back to my mushrooms and pulling out the cap, dredging it in the flour, then putting it in the egg. Oops, I missed the spot, didn't I? Oh, look, I missed that bigger spot. So this is kind of the fun part. You have to get the egg on most of it, because otherwise the breadcrumbs aren't going to stick. And then you're going to put it into the breadcrumbs. And it looks like I need to pour some into the center, and then shake off the excess and put that on the plate. And you keep doing that. And if you want to do 3 mushrooms, 4 mushrooms, or 6, you'll just go through that same process with all of them. So you might need to refill your container with flour and with the egg, depending on how many mushrooms you're making. So now I'm going to put that into the egg and hope that it sticks. Oh, that was pretty good. And this one needs a little extra help. I'm going to take a spoon. Take a spoon and pour that in, and then kind of swirl it around so that it gets covered. Get rid of the excess, and then I'm going to swirl it around to get the crumbs on the outside shell, and then I'm going to work on the inside. So I have 3 of them done. My pan should be heated up now. And I'm actually going to, no, it's not quite ready. So it didn't sizzle, which is my indicator that it's not quite ready. So I'm just gonna leave that one in there, but I'm gonna wait till the pan heats up a little bit more. And I'm gonna continue on with the dredging of the mushrooms. I was thinking at one point that maybe we can even add Gruyere cheese to it, but then I changed my mind. That could be something that you could also try, is to put a little bit of Gruyere cheese inside. But when we're gonna make these crispy, we're gonna actually put some of the spinach inside the shell. Or is it inside the button? All right. One last one. I might be able to get one more out of this. All right, I'm gonna put this onto the pan. Seems like my pan is taking forever to heat up. It's definitely on, but I'm gonna go ahead and put my mushroom caps in here. And with a 12-inch pan, I can actually fit 4 or 5 mushrooms into the same pan. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my 5th one, just because I can. Yeah, so if you've got only five mushroom caps, or the medium-sized ones, you might be able to do this all with just 1 egg instead of 2. Oh, now I'm hearing the sizzling on the pan. We're making progress. But again, you got to check your mushroom to make sure that you've got the egg all over it, because that's what the breadcrumbs are going to stick to. All right, so I am running out a little bit of the breadcrumbs. So I think what I'm going to end up doing here is using that spoon to kind of sprinkle it on, because it's not going to work the other way. We'll see if that shakes off or not. All right, close enough. So now you're going to put that all onto the pan. And then I'm going to save this plate for putting the cooked mushrooms on. So this is actually the most boring part, but I'm gonna make sure that the oil is kind of all over the pan. But we're just gonna let this sit here for a good 3 to 4 minutes on each side. You can go ahead and rinse your fingers, because now you've got breadcrumbs and eggs and the flour all over them, and it's gonna be hard to do the next part. But while we are waiting for this, we're going to go ahead and move these items out of the way. And we're going to go ahead and chop the onion. Okay, so we're going to chop the onion, add a little bit of garlic, because garlic makes everything better. And this is just going to continue doing what it's doing. So we're going to take our onion and cut it into half moons. Where's my, you want a big butcher knife, because it's got a little bit more leverage. I'm going to make sure that it's sharp, so that I don't cut my finger and just cut the onion. But this is a whopper of an onion, so I'm only going to use half of it. If you're using shallots, then you'll want to use 2 shallots and then just cut them into slices, cut them in half, and then cut them into thin slices. So you're just going to cut the end off, take the skin off, probably 2 layers of the onion off. And make sure, whoops, look, the insides are trying to run away. Make sure you take that skinny layer off, because that is very slippery. I'm gonna just put that into my little my composting pile. And because this is such a big onion, I'm actually going to cut it into a quarter. And then you're going to make these 1/4 inch and maybe even thinner slices. A lot of onions. But onions are good for feeding the good bugs in the gut. So that'll boost your immune system. It'll keep you more healthy. And definitely easier to eat when they're cooked and caramelized, because that's what we're going to try to do is caramelize them. So keeping that tail on keeps the end a little bit together so that you don't have to cut your finger when it gets closer to the end. But I'm going to now, it looks like it's time for me to flip the, I don't know if you can see, but the mushrooms are looking a little, they're pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and flip them before they burn. And this is where we're at. I'm actually going to have us cut some spinach onto the mushrooms, and hopefully it'll wilt from the heat of the mushrooms. Does that make sense? So take a handful of your spinach, and it's probably just going to be easier to use a, well, I'll just have you do it over here.
Can you use can you use whatever greens you have, Joanna?
Whatever greens you have. Yeah, I have
Okay.
spinach. So if you want to do chard or kale or whatever, that's fine. So what you're going to do is just put it into the button. And I have to turn my heat down because I think I turned it up a little bit too high. You're just going to put a little bit of the spinach onto the top of the mushrooms. And the hard part, I think the hard part now is putting it next to the, as I get my hands closer to the pan, I'm getting burned by the edge of the pan. You know what? I've changed my mind. Take that spinach and just cut it into the center of the pan because it's not going to wilt on the. We're just going to make some sauteed spinach. This is the fun part of cooking. You have these great ideas, and then you try to execute, and they don't necessarily work. So we're just going to saute the spinach on the side. And then we're going to add that back in later when we add the mushrooms in. But I find that the scissors are easier to get them in place rather than chopping it onto on a cutting board. And considering our cutting board is all full, that's another reason to just use scissors. All right. So the spinach should be starting to wilt. The onions are all chopped up. And now we're gonna just cut up a garlic or two. So we're gonna take the skin off the garlic. I'm gonna use the edge of the knife to push it down and, oh, this was a double. That's why I was having trouble. And that'll get the skin off easier. So you're just gonna cut these into, I don't know what they call it, 1/8 of an inch little slices. And I'm gonna put 3 garlic cloves into mine. This is another one of those great immune boosters. It's antiviral, antibacterial, and when it's raw, it really is a powerhouse. But eating it raw might not be so easy. All right, so that part is done. The mushrooms look pretty done, and so does the spinach. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that onto that side plate so that I don't have to look at it anymore. We can get to the next part. So the other thing that you want to make sure, I don't know if you can see this, but the liquid is starting to come out of the mushroom. That's how you know the mushroom is actually cooked. We want to keep these things crispy, and that button has a lot of that liquid in it. So when you pick it up with your tongs, you're going to notice that. And then we're just going to scrape off all this spinach. And this way, now you can have some spinach on every button, right? All right, so if you want to add a little bit more olive oil, you can, or a little bit more ghee, but what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and put the onions and the garlic into the pan. And let them just caramelize a little bit. Make sure you don't have any garlic skins in there, because that will not help anything. Put it on the side. If you have a lid, that might be a good thing. A domed lid, that might be a good thing to put over the mushrooms to keep them a little bit warmer. Then I'm just going to use a wooden spoon. I'm going to pour a little bit more olive oil in here to get them to fry a little bit more. So this is how the easy part, right? You just sit here and wait. And we're going to add some thyme into here. So you're going to put a teaspoon of thyme into the onions. I'm going to actually do a little extra just because I like thyme. You're going to throw that in there just for extra flavor. Yeah. Let that kind of soak in. And while this is doing that, I'm going to go get my tawny pork because the sangria is not going to work. It's going to give it a really different flavor that I don't want. Yeah, if you don't have marsala, you're going to use
So Joanna,
tawny pork.
just to back up, we're putting the shallots in the pan.
The shallots in the pan and the garlic.
And the garlic, okay.
We're going to caramelize it a little bit, so you're not going to be constantly stirring it. You're going to let some of the natural sugars come out of the garlic, which gives it some extra yummy flavor. Because cooking is all about flavor. So I'm just giving you some extra little tidbits on how to add more flavor. You let this caramelize. So to caramelize it, you just let it simmer and let it just sit there for 5 minutes. And then touch. And then we're going to stir in, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stir in the vegetable broth. And remember, it's quarter cup of vegetable broth, a quarter cup of the marsala wine or the tawny port. And then we're just gonna let that simmer until some of the liquid is reduced. But you don't want these to be charred. You want them to be brown. So mine, I definitely needed to stir because they're starting to get that little brown, the browned edges. But I need all of them to be brown, not just a couple of them. So I'm gonna leave this here for another minute, maybe stir it one more time. And then we're gonna add the quarter cup of the port and the quarter cup of the broth. And then we can do a quarter cup of cream. Okay? Easy peasy, right? I'm gonna do a little bit of salt and pepper in this too. Otherwise, the flavors might not be quite so good if it's salty on one side and in the mushrooms and not in the sauce. All right, it's sizzling very nicely. I'm gonna stir it one more time, wait one more minute, and then we're gonna add the liquid. How's yours coming along?
Good, everything's starting to brown.
All right, good. It needs to make it on the pan. Come on, put down there. But yeah, when they start to brown is when you get all the yummy flavor out of the onions. So I remember making a whole tart with just onions, and that was so yummy because it was just all caramelized onions. So good.
I know, they're so good when they're caramelized right. Oh my God.
Yeah. Like when you've had caramelized onions, the first time you have them, you have no idea that they're actually just onions.
I know, and I'm
Right.
usually never patient enough to like get them caramelized.
Well, it requires a little bit of patience, that's for sure. But it's a combination of patience and timing, because if you
Yeah,
leave it too long, then they get brown. If you stir them too often, then they never caramelize. So it's kind of this little game of getting them browned without getting them burned. They're just gonna wait until they all turn a little bit more brown, because I got half a pan of browned and half a pan raw, it still looks like. So, and I think I think I'm in the middle of the burner. The pan is in the middle of the burner, I should say. I'm not in the middle of the burner. That could be painful. I'm gonna go ahead and stir it again. But mine are almost ready. I think I still have another minute or two, because they're not quite all caramelized, and that's what I really want, is all of them to be a little bit more brown.
yeah,
That's where all the flavor is, right, Gina?
yeah. We're getting there.
Yeah, I know. This is the part where you just kind of look and wait and look and wait.
And I was at Wegmans and they had beautiful greens. I got the combination with the chard, the kale, and the spinach.
Oh, I love that one.
But then they also had they had dandelion greens.
Really? I love
Yeah,
dandelion greens. They're really good for you. A lot of people realize that they're good for water
Dandelion
retention. Like
greens.
they're diuretic, and they actually help balance out the water balance. And they're bitter too. So then they, you know, if you eat them
Yeah,
first,
they balance everything out.
even if you want them for a little bit, you can use that as a bitter to actually produce, to help your mouth produce more digestive enzymes.
Yeah, so actually, yeah, we're sauteing all the greens mixed together in another pan.
Nice. That'll be a nice side for sure.
Yeah, it was dandelion greens and they had Swiss, and I got Swiss chard.
Nice. Yeah, when I went last night, and they didn't have, the selection was a little grim. It wasn't dismal, it was just, you know, there wasn't all the things that I wanted weren't there. And I didn't see any shallots whatsoever. So I'm like, well, all right. And the onions.
Yeah, the greens were on like one side, and I went to one in Montgomeryville because I went on my way home from my client's house. And yeah, the greens were on one side, and then the salads, like the packaged salads were on the other side.
Right. I'll have to look there next time I go. Because I haven't seen I've seen mustard greens, turnip greens, but I haven't seen the dandelion. So that's.
Yeah, they had the dandelion, and yeah, and then they had the Swiss chard. So
nice. Yeah, when it looks good and it looks fresh, best to buy it, and like you're doing now, saute it right off the bat.
I know my
friends of ours. Do your onions look brown like mine?
Yeah, they're brown.
So if they're this brown, that's when you know it's time to add the quarter cup of. Oops, I can't do this with one hand. Quarter cup of your pork or marsala, quarter cup of your vegetable broth. And then we're just gonna let it simmer here for a little while. Kind of just make sure that all the onions are in the liquid. And we're gonna let it reduce a little bit before we add some of the cream. We're gonna add like a quarter cup of cream too. But if you add the cream too soon, you ruin the meal. So we're gonna let this reduce first. Oh, it smells good. How's it smell on your side?
Oh.
It's like, Yum, yum, yum. So we're just gonna let this reduce a little bit. And like I said, we're gonna add maybe a quarter cup of the sour cream. Maybe it's not sour cream. Eighth of a cup of the cream. But we have to let this reduce for about a minute or two. Let it thicken a teeny bit, and then we're gonna put the sauce in. I mean the sauce. We're gonna put the cream in.
What's with the nuts?
I don't know.
And hopefully the mushrooms are gonna stay warm, because we could actually put them back in just to warm them up a bit, and then we're gonna serve it on the plate. This is the hard part to kind of gauge, you know, has it reduced, has it not reduced? And because there's alcohol in here, then it'll probably reduce a little faster. But there's probably, I'm gonna give it one more minute and then I'm gonna add the cream. You should have about half of what you had to start with in the pan. But that's the hard part, is to tell if it's half gone. We're gonna turn the heat off when we add the cream. Make sense? All right, we're gonna do 1/8 of a cup of cream.
No, but
And we're gonna turn the stove off. Nice, so now you're just gonna mix it all together.
Yeah, we don't have cream, so because I didn't get it because it wasn't on the recipe.
I know, I forgot to put it on there.
And
Put it in
I
my
never
kitchen.
I never have it in the house because we don't use it.
Well,
And I don't think oat milk will like cut it.
I don't think oat milk won't be thick enough.
Yeah, now. That will do without the cream.
Yeah, you'll just have to do without the cream. But I'm actually gonna turn this thing back on again and put a couple of the mushrooms back into the plate to warm them up a little bit more. I don't think I'm gonna eat that many, so I think I'm just gonna warm up 2 of them. Otherwise, I'm gonna have. And I don't know if they'll be crispy because I covered them. I just realized that the fact that I covered them, I think I probably made them all soggy. Oh well. Lesson learned. If you're gonna make the recipe, instead of putting it on a plate, put them in the toaster oven or someplace where they'll just and don't cover them, because I think I'm gonna have soggy portobello mushrooms instead of.
I know some of the chefs, they take a pan with a like some kind of a pan with like a cooling rack and put them in the oven low at like 200 and let them sit.
Yeah.
And this way they don't get mushy.
Well, and I think mine got mushy, but I didn't realize it until it was too late. So now I need a plate to eat. Okay, so here comes the fun part, right?
We put a little cheese on ours.
What kind of, are you putting like Gruyere or what are you putting on?
I don't know. I just grabbed cheese out of the fridge. I forgot what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might be Gouda.
Gouda would be good too. Because I was actually thinking of putting some Gruyere.
I think it might be, I think it might be
But
the Pecorino Romano or the Grana Padano.
that's what it's grown.
All right, here's my one. I don't know if I'll be able to eat 1 mushroom or 2, but this is my one lonely mushroom.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting weird lights. How did yours turn out?
Out of the pan now.
They're looking good.
They are looking good. It smells good. It looks good. It must be good. So there's only one way to find out if it's good, right? It's time to try. So if you're making this and you have leftovers, make sure you put the mushrooms separate from the sauce.
There's ours.
Oh, that looks awesome. That looks awesome. So now I'm gonna try it. But what I was saying is if you make it at home yourself and you make sure you put the mushrooms in a different container, because when you want to reheat it, you can put that into the toaster oven or into the oven. And if it did get a little bit mushy from being stored, it'll regain its crispiness. So bon appetit. Very tasty. But yeah, mine didn't end up being crispy because I covered the mushrooms. But there's definitely a nice.
What's with the walnuts?
There's no walnuts in this one.
Yeah, there is. Chopped walnuts or pine nuts.
Unless you're maybe.
No, that was from last week. That was for the risotto last week.
Oh, all right. Well, I just printed the recipe off of whatever you had on Facebook. Unless you use them. Well, you use the nuts for. That's what you use the nuts for. What do you call it?
I use the nuts as part of my breadcrumbs.
Yeah, she used the nuts for breadcrumbs. That's right.
But I didn't realize that I had that in the ingredients. I thought I took those out. Sorry. I'll
That's
put
all
them in
right.
the video. So one of the things that we're going to be making next week or in 2 weeks It's gonna be, would you prefer salmon or cod?
Either,
Let's do cod.
let's do cod.
Let's do cod. So we're gonna do cod with a salsa verde. It's gonna be with a green sauce. And I'm gonna be using parsley instead of cilantro, just because I'm not really a fan of cilantro. And if you want me to gag on the video,
Yeah, that
then-
sounds good to me.
then I'll use cilantro. But we're also gonna be making some caramelized carrots with shallots. So a different root vegetable, but now we're gonna do it with fish. And there's a company that I just got some fish from. Gonna pull it out. But this is a black cod.
Yeah.
And it's a wild cod from Alaska. And it's from a company called Sena Sea. So SENAC.com. And they overnight it to you. They ship it on Monday and you can get it on Tuesday and you get these 6-ounce portions. So I'm gonna be using this for our next class and be making the roasted cod with the salsa verde and the caramelized carrots and shallots on the side. Okay,
Sounds good.
awesome. Well, enjoy your dinner. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, just type them below or contact me directly at nutritioninmotion.net. And if you enjoyed the video and wanted to make a donation so that I can continue doing these videos, you can send $10 through Venmo, and that's also in the link below. So have a great night. Thank you for joining us and enjoy your crispy portabellos.
Thank you.